Higgins, Maldaner's Restaurant, and today we're going to do one of our signature items, crab cakes. Um, these are not like the regular crab cakes you would buy. You'll see as we make the recipe. And the recipe originally came from a restaurant in San Francisco called Boulevard, which is a very nice restaurant in San Francisco. So when this pandemic thing is all over and you go to San Francisco, go to Boulevard. And a woman-owned restaurant, and very, very good. And you'll see by this recipe that they don't cut corners. And this is what we used here. And you all have your recipes in front of you. Now that recipe is a basic recipe, okay? You can take that recipe like we're going to do today and do a little variations of it. Not much, but a little. Because the most important thing you want to know about this recipe is it's about the crab meat and not about the filler or the breadcrumbs. So when you buy crab cakes in the store and a lot of places, you'll get them and they're like 30–40% bread crumbs inside. You'll find that we put no breadcrumbs in these crab cakes. It's solid crab meat. That's why they're a little more expensive, but that's why they're really, really good. And like I said, this will vary a little bit from your recipe. I gave you the base recipe. Now I'm going to show you what we do to make it ours and not Nancy's. Okay? So to get started, so we use lump and claw meat on the crab meat from, this is like Chesapeake Bay or East Coast crab meat. So we use half lump, half claw. So we take our crab meat and we'll put it in a strainer. And we will try to get as much of the liquid out as possible. Now at the restaurant, what we do is we put this in a perforated pan, and then we put a weight on it. You could use a china cap like this or a strainer, and but we put a weight on it and let it set overnight with the weight on it, and it takes out a lot of the juice, because we're not going to be putting in any filler or binder necessarily. And the other thing you want to do is you want to be careful that you don't want to pulverize the crab meat. You want it to still have its integrity in chunks overnight. And I just wanted to show you going from the can. So we're done with that. Now you can save that juice and freeze it or whatever. And then when you want to make bouillabaisse or something like that, or a fish sauce, you can save that juice there and then use that in a fish sauce or something that you want to make. So you don't necessarily have to throw it out, okay? So this is, you can see, we've kept the integrity and the size of the crab, so pieces. I'm going to take about a half a cup of mayonnaise. We'll put that in. Start with a little less just in case. You can do Thousand Island or you can do Russian dressing, either one. We put this in just because it's not in your recipe, but it just gives a little sweetness to it. And then some lemon zest. Now you could just put lemon juice in here, but the lemon zest also gives it a nice lemon flavor that you just wouldn't get from just lemon juice. Okay. Take about a half a lemon. Squeeze that in there. Now, why do we take all that juice out if we're adding all this liquid? Don't argue with me. So we put that in there. And we're going to put just a dash of Dijon in here. This just gives it a little acidity. And because the recipe calls for jalapeno peppers or whatever, we're just going to give this a shot of Tabasco like that. There again, the Tabasco gives you a little bit of acidity and a little bit of heat, not much though. Then we'll take our celery. Now, if I was on a TV show, someone would already have this diced for you. And I would just be dumping it in. So about 2 tablespoons. So you can see, instead of just cutting the celery in pieces like that, I just cut the ribs a little bit thinner. And then we'll use a red pepper, just because of the color it'll give. There again, we're going to cut this a little bit thin. Cut your finger off. I know this recipe calls for thyme. You could do that if you got fresh or dried. This we're just going to put in just a little bit of fresh chives. Not onions, because we don't want thick pieces of onion. Now we don't necessarily use any salt, because the crab meat comes from the ocean or wherever they raise it, Chesapeake Bay or wherever, and they don't. The crab meat does have salt, but if you think you need to add salt, then add salt. Then we're going to put a little bit of fresh. This is flat leaf parsley. Just a little. Then we're going to give it a stir. Now we're not going to mash it in, we're just going to stir it in nice and easy. We want it to be able to have it hold together. So your mayonnaise and your mustard are kind of your binder. And now we're going to make the crab cake. So we do use breadcrumbs, but we have our pan with breadcrumbs in them. We set our mold into the breadcrumbs. A little bit higher than the ring mold. And then we just push it down, put some breadcrumbs on top, just push it down into the bread. We turn it over, and we push it down into the bread again. So this gives you your crust. So now, put our oil in our pan. This little olive oil. This is a little butter. While we're doing that, so this is an order of crab cakes. If you were going to do like a cocktail party, you can get a smaller ring mold or a small scoop. Make your own patty. Just put that in there. Put your breadcrumbs on top. Press it in. Press it in. Now we're just going to unmold this gently. And so you see what that looks like. There's not any bread in there. The bread is all out here. Now these are very delicate because there is no binder in them. So we're just going to let that brown for a minute. Now, if we were in the kitchen, what we would do is we let the bottom side brown. We would flip it over and then put it in the oven for 2 or 3 minutes. But we're not going to do that, so when we make the presentation here, you'll see that obviously this will still be a little cold in the middle. Check this out. Flip that over. Now, I ask you, other than Boulevard and your favorite place on the East Coast, or maybe Chicago or a big city, where do you get a crab cake that looks like that? You get the lemon wedges. So in making a lemon wedge, we cut off the ends. We cut off this, or cut it in half. We go like this. Cut it in fours. Now, this is what I learned in school. One, I was using a knife way too big because the chef told me, Mr. Higgins, I said, yes, chef. I was using a big French knife, and he goes, you see that fire axe on the wall in the kitchen? And I said, yes, chef. And he goes, if that knife's not big enough, use the fire axe. So I knew that I should get a smaller knife. Didn't have to explain it twice. But also, what's important on your wedges, you got that little white membrane on them, like that. So you cut that off. So now, when you squeeze your lemon, the juice runs basically straight down. With the white membrane on it, you squeeze it, and the juice will run straight down, but it'll also squirt out. So you cut that white membrane off, and you take some of the seeds out that you can. It's another thing they taught you in school. Does it make any difference? Most people, it doesn't make any difference, but if you know right from wrong, then it makes a difference. Take a little bit of lemon juice over the greens. And we'll take a little olive oil over the greens. Check on crab cake. Make sure it's nice and brown on the other side. Okay. Set that right there. You can set it off to the side a little bit. Set that one over there. Take our 2 lemon wedges. Now also, if you want to take a cucumber or whatever, you can put a couple slices of cucumber on this side, maybe a tomato slice. Put your lemon wedges here. You can garnish this any way you want. But then we're taking, like I said, you can use the Louis dressing, and we'll do that with the little one. But we're going to take, what we do here is we make a pickled mustard seed. We're just going to take a little bit of that on there. So basically, now that is your crab cake presentation. Now, if you were going to do a little cocktail party, you have these small crab cakes, this one over here. You can have these in a tray or a pan or around a plate. Just put the crab cake here. Then we'll take a little of the Louis dressing, or we'll take, the pickled We'll just top that like that. So remember, we gave you a basic recipe. Did we follow the basic recipe? No. But we stayed within the guidelines of the basic recipe. And the most important thing is not filling that crab with a lot of breadcrumbs. So when you eat it, this would be how it looks inside. So if you have any questions, you can call me at the restaurant. You can see that we followed the basic guidelines of the recipe. We added some of our own ingredients. We added the pickled mustard seed, which if you go to Momofuku's cookbook, you can find a recipe for pickled mustard seed. And you put a little mayonnaise into that pickled mustard seed. And if you have any questions, you can always ask me at the restaurant. But you as a chef, or you as the cook, or you as the entertainer, get a little bit of leeway in how you want to personalize it too. And you can go ahead and do that. And I hope you enjoyed the demonstration.
Chef Higgins, Susan Lawrence was a longtime patron for celebrations and parties and used Maldaner's as her caterer and restaurant. Do you happen to have any stories?
You know, I'd have to say one of the reasons why Dana Thomas House Foundation or organization chose us to do a demonstration here is because we have had a long history with Susan Dana, and that we used to do a lot of catering. Maldaner's used to do a lot of catering back in the day to her to the house, and she had her favorite recipes. But I can tell you, crab cakes wasn't one of them. So there's a book that, and I tried to find it and I couldn't find it, but that has some of our recipes that she used, and there's some publications that had some of our recipes or her favorite things from here. But I tell you what, if she liked crab, back in those days, she would have had these. So if you see her, tell her I said so.